Desperate stand. The invasion begins. Kai Chen, a sergeant in the United Earth Defense Force, UEDF, watched in grim silence as the alien dropships descended through the atmosphere. Plumes of fire and smoke rose in the distance, marking where humanity's last strongholds had fallen. It had been a week since the invasion began, and the aliens had already crushed most of Earth's defenses with their superior technology and ruthless tactics. The remote mountain base where Kai was stationed with the remnants of his unit was one of the last remaining pockets of resistance. They were all that stood between the invaders and total conquest. As the dropships drew closer, Kai could make out the sleek, insectoid forms of the alien soldiers. They moved with an eerie synchronicity, their movements precise and efficient. A last hope. Captain Nora Evans, the commanding officer of the base, called the soldiers together. "I won't lie to you," she said, her voice steady despite the weight of the situation. "We're outgunned and outnumbered, but we're not going to go down without a fight. We're the last line of defense. If we fall, Earth falls." Kai looked around at his fellow soldiers. They were a ragtag group, drawn from different units and backgrounds. Some were hardened veterans, others barely out of training. But they all shared the same determined expression. They knew the odds were against them, but they were ready to fight to the last. The alien onslaught. The first wave of alien soldiers hit the base's perimeter like a tidal wave. Their energy weapons tore through the human defenses, leaving molten slag in their wake. Kai and his squad took cover behind the remnants of a concrete wall, returning fire with their Gauss rifles. But for every alien they took down, two more seemed to take its place. As the battle raged on, it became clear that the humans were fighting a losing battle. The aliens were simply too strong, their technology too advanced. One by one, the human soldiers fell, until only a handful remained. Kai's squad was reduced to just 4. Himself, Sergeant Lisa Ortega, Corporal Dev Patel, and Private Jay Su. Retreat and regroup. With the perimeter breached, Captain Evans ordered a retreat to the base's inner sanctum. The survivors fell back, sealing blast doors behind them. In the dim emergency lighting, they took stock of their situation. They were low on ammo, cut off from reinforcements, and facing an enemy that seemed unstoppable. "What do we do now?" Private Su asked, his voice shaking. Kai exchanged a glance with Sergeant Ortega. They had served together for years and could read each other's thoughts. They both knew there was only one way this could end. "We fight," Ortega said simply. "We fight until we can't fight anymore." A glimmer of hope. As the others prepared for the final stand, Kai hesitated. He had a secret, one he had kept hidden for years. A secret that might just give them a chance, however slim. He had been training, mastering an ancient martial art passed down through his family for generations. It was a strange, esoteric art, one that focused not on strength or speed, but on something else entirely. Something that, if the legends were true, could allow a skilled practitioner to perform feats that seemed impossible. Feats that might just be enough to turn the tide against the aliens. But Kai had never used it in actual combat before. He had never been sure if the stories were true or just myths and exaggerations. And even if they were true, he didn't know if his own skills would be enough. As the sound of the aliens breaching the inner doors echoed through the base, Kai made his decision. It was time to put his training to the test. It was time to reveal his secret and hope that it would be enough to save what was left of humanity. With a deep breath, Kai stepped forward, ready to face the oncoming horde, ready to fight not just for his own life, but for the lives of everyone on Earth. The fate of humanity would be decided here, in this last desperate stand. And Kai would do whatever it took to ensure that humanity survived. The mysterious art. Revelations. As the aliens breached the inner sanctum, Kai stepped forward, placing himself between the invaders and his fellow soldiers. Captain Evans shot him a questioning look. "Sergeant Chen, what are you doing?" Kai took a deep breath. "Captain, there's something I haven't told you." Something that might give us a chance. The others looked at him in confusion as he continued. I've been training in an ancient martial art, one that's said to grant extraordinary abilities to those who master it. Sergeant Ortega raised an eyebrow. Kai, this isn't the time for jokes. I'm not joking, Kai said firmly. I know it sounds crazy, but it's true. And right now, it might be our only hope. The ancient art. As the aliens charged into the room, Kai moved to meet them. But instead of firing his weapon, he dropped into a strange stance, his movements fluid and graceful. The aliens seemed to hesitate, confused by this unexpected development. Then, Kai struck. His movements were a blur, his hands and feet striking with a speed and precision that seemed impossible. The first alien went down, its neck snapped by a well-placed blow. The second fell a moment later, its chest caved in by a powerful palm strike. The other soldiers watched in awe as Kai wove through the alien ranks, his movements a symphony of controlled chaos. His techniques were unlike anything they had ever seen, a blend of striking, grappling, and something else, something that seemed to defy the laws of physics, a glimmer of hope. As Kai fought, the tide began to turn. The aliens, so used to relying on their superior technology, seemed ill-equipped to deal with this new threat. They hesitated, their movements becoming clumsy and uncertain. Inspired by Kai's example, the other soldiers rallied. They may not have had his unique skills, but they had something else, the human spirit, the refusal to give up even in the face of overwhelming odds. They fought with a renewed ferocity, using every trick and tactic they knew. And it was working. The aliens were falling back, their advance halted by this unexpected resistance. For the first time since the invasion began, there was a glimmer of hope, questions and doubts. But even as they fought, questions raced through the minds of Kai's fellow soldiers. What was this mysterious art? Where had it come from? And why had Kai kept it a secret for so long? Some, like Private Sue, were simply grateful for any advantage. Others, like Sergeant Ortega, were more skeptical. She had known Kai for years and had never seen any hint of these abilities before. As the battle raged on, Ortega pulled Kai aside during a momentary lull. Kai, I need you to be straight with me. What is this? How is this possible? Kai met her gaze, his expression serious. It's called the art of the void. It's been passed down in my family for generations, from master to student. I've been training in secret for years. But why keep it a secret? Why not tell us before? Kai hesitated, because it's not just a martial art. It's something more, something that's hard to explain. I wasn't sure if I was ready, if it would work when it really mattered. A turn of the tide. Before Ortega could press further, the aliens launched another assault. This time, they came in force, determined to crush this unexpected resistance. But Kai was there to meet them. And now, the other soldiers could see the true extent of his abilities. He seemed to anticipate the aliens' moves before they made them, dodging their blows with an uncanny grace. His own strikes were precise and devastating, each one aimed at a vital point. Under Kai's leadership, the humans began to push the aliens back. They fought their way out of the inner sanctum, taking the battle to the invaders. The tide was turning, and for the first time, victory seemed possible. But even as they fought, Kai knew that this was just the beginning. The aliens would not give up so easily, and there were still so many questions, so many mysteries surrounding his own abilities. But for now, those questions could wait. For now, all that mattered was the fight. All that mattered was ensuring the survival of humanity, no matter the cost. With a fierce battle cry, Kai led the charge, his fellow soldiers following close behind. They would fight, and they would win. They had to. The fate of the world depended on it. Turning the tide. The counterattack. With Kai's leadership and extraordinary abilities, the human soldiers managed to push the aliens back from the inner sanctum. They fought their way through the base, reclaiming it room by room. The aliens, so used to being the dominant force, seemed shocked by this turn of events. As they advanced, Kai's martial art proved to be a game-changer. His strikes were precise and devastating, each one aimed at a critical point on the aliens' bodies. He seemed to know where they were most vulnerable, even though he had never faced their species before. The other soldiers, inspired by Kai's example, fought with a renewed vigor. They used guerrilla tactics, striking from the shadows and disappearing before the aliens could retaliate. They set traps and ambushes, using their knowledge of the base's layout to their advantage. Confusion and fear. The aliens, for their part, were becoming increasingly confused and fearful. Their advanced technology, which had served them so well in the initial invasion, seemed less effective against Kai's martial art and the humans' unpredictable tactics. Their once perfectly coordinated attacks became disjointed and erratic. Some aliens broke rank, fleeing from the human counterattack. Others lashed out in frustration, their discipline giving way to panic. Through it all, Kai was a beacon of calm and focus. He moved through the chaos like a dancer, his movements fluid and graceful. His presence seemed to inspire his fellow soldiers, giving them hope in the face of overwhelming odds. Outside the base, as the battle inside the base turned in favor of the humans, a similar shift was happening outside. The alien forces that had been massing for a final assault on the base suddenly found themselves on the defensive. Human reinforcements, drawn by the distress calls sent out before the base was cut off, had arrived. They struck the aliens from behind, catching them off guard. Attack helicopters and fighter jets strafed the alien positions, while ground troops engaged them in fierce firefights. The aliens, already reeling from the unexpected resistance inside the base, were now caught between two fronts. Their once orderly formations dissolved into chaos as they struggled to respond to threats from all sides. Turning point. Inside the base, Kai and his fellow soldiers had managed to fight their way to the command center. They found Captain Evans there, along with a handful of other survivors. Evans looked up as they entered, relief and surprise etched on her face. "Sergeant Chen," she said, "I thought we'd lost you." Kai shook his head. "Not yet, ma'am. We're pushing them back, and we've got reinforcements outside." Evans nodded, a glimmer of hope in her eyes. "Then let's finish this." Together, they coordinated with the forces outside, planning a final, decisive strike against the alien invaders. Kai would lead a team to take out the aliens' command ship, while the rest held the line inside and outside the base. It was a risky plan, but it was their best chance. If they could cut the head off the alien forces, the rest might scatter and retreat. The final push. As Kai and his team made their way towards the alien command ship, the battle raged on all around them. The air was thick with smoke and the smell of burning metal. Energy beams and tracer rounds crisscrossed the sky. But Kai was focused on his mission. With his martial art, he carved a path through the alien forces, his team following close behind. They fought their way to the command ship, a looming behemoth of black metal and pulsing energy. Once inside, they faced the elite of the alien forces, the commanders and their personal guards. But even these proved no match for Kai's skills. He moved among them like a whirlwind, striking with a speed and precision that seemed superhuman. With the command ship taken, the rest of the alien forces fell into disarray. Cut off from their leadership, they lost all cohesion and purpose. Some fled, others surrendered. A few fought to the last, but they were quickly overwhelmed. Against all odds, humanity had won. The invasion was over, the alien threat repelled, and it was in no small part thanks to Kai and his mysterious martial art. But as the dust settled and the cheers of victory rang out, Kai knew that this was only the beginning. The world had changed, and his secret was out. There would be questions, investigations, perhaps even fear and mistrust. But for now, none of that mattered. For now, all that mattered was that they had survived. Humanity had proven its strength, its resilience, and its refusal to go quietly into the night. And whatever challenges lay ahead, Kai knew that they would face them the same way they had faced the aliens, together and with unwavering determination. Retreat of the invaders. Disarray and panic. With their command ship taken and their leadership in disarray, the alien forces quickly fell into panic. The once disciplined and coordinated army dissolved into a chaotic mess, with individual soldiers and units acting on their own, driven by fear and self-preservation. Some tried to regroup, to mount a counterattack, but without central command, their efforts were ineffective and easily countered by the now emboldened human forces. Others simply fled, abandoning their positions and equipment in a desperate attempt to escape. The sight of the aliens in such a state was almost surreal. These were the same beings who, just days before, had seemed an unstoppable force, an existential threat to humanity's very existence. Now, they were running scared, their technological and numerical advantages rendered moot by human ingenuity and determination. Pressing the advantage, the human forces, buoyed by their success and the obvious disarray of the enemy, pressed their advantage. They chased down fleeing alien units, capturing or eliminating them before they could regroup or escape. They targeted key infrastructure and supply lines, further eroding the aliens' ability to fight back. At the forefront of these efforts was Kai and his team. With their intimate knowledge of the base and its surroundings, they were able to anticipate the aliens' moves, cutting them off and engaging them in swift, decisive strikes. Kai's martial art continued to prove invaluable. He could engage the aliens in close quarters, negating their technological edge and sowing further confusion and fear in their ranks. His team, now trained in some of his techniques, acted as a force multiplier, striking with precision and efficiency. A world watching. As the battle turned decisively in humanity's favor, news of the events at the mountain base spread across the globe. Video feeds and communications from the base, once cut off, now streamed out to a world hungry for any sign of hope. Images of Kai and his fellow soldiers' heroic stand, of the aliens' retreat and defeat, flashed across screens in every nation. The world watched, transfixed, as a seemingly impossible victory unfolded before their eyes. In cities and towns across the planet, people took to the streets in celebration. The fear and despair that had gripped humanity in the face of the invasion gave way to jubilation and relief. Against all odds, they had survived. They had won. But amidst the celebrations, there were also questions. Who was this Sergeant Kai Chen? What was this mysterious martial art that had proven so effective against the alien invaders? And what did this mean for the future of humanity? Retreat and rout. Back at the mountain base, the alien retreat was turning into a full-scale rout. Their ships, once a looming threat in the skies, were now fleeing, taking off and disappearing into the upper atmosphere. On the ground, the last pockets of alien resistance were being mopped up. Those that couldn't escape surrendered, their once proud bearing replaced by a look of utter defeat and confusion. For Kai and his fellow soldiers, there was a sense of grim satisfaction. They had faced the ultimate test and emerged victorious. They had proven, beyond any doubt, the strength and resilience of the human spirit. But there was also exhaustion and a realization of the losses they had suffered. Many good men and women had given their lives in this fight. Their sacrifice would never be forgotten. As the last of the aliens were rounded up and the base secured, Captain Evans approached Kai. There was a look of respect and gratitude in her eyes, mixed with a hint of curiosity. "Sergeant Chen," she said, "I think it's time we had a talk about this art of the void of yours." Kai nodded, a slight smile on his face. "Yes, ma'am. I think it is." The battle was over, but Kai knew that his journey, and humanity's, was just beginning. The world had changed irrevocably, and they would all have to adapt. But with the strength and unity they had shown in the face of this crisis, he had no doubt that they would rise to the challenge. Together, they would rebuild. Together, they would prepare for whatever the future might bring. and together they would ensure that the sacrifices made here, on this battleground, were not in vain. The invaders had been driven back, but the